Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Great to see your smiling faces here. Great to see, or at least know you're out there on Zoom. So we just want to welcome everyone, whether you're here, you're on Zoom, or you are watching us on YouTube. Welcome to Unity of Charlotte. My name is Rev Lisa, and I am the co-minister here at Unity of Charlotte, along with Reverend Jim. And we are so happy to have joined this spiritual family. At Unity of Charlotte, this is a place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of our unity principles. Now, what this means is we're here, quite simply, to love, to grow, and to serve. If you're here for the first time, we'd like to know. If you're here, if you would raise your hands. We have anybody here for the first. Welcome. It's nice to have you here. Wonderful, wonderful. And if you're on Zoom and you're new, please know that we're delighted you're here to join us for the first time, second time, maybe even the third. And know that wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We have a welcome packet, which it looks like you might have already gotten. Wonderful. If you are on Zoom and you'd like to have one, just put something in the chat, or we will, or go on our website and sign up, and we'll be sure to get one to you. We'd also let you know we have a newsletter you can sign up for that will let you know about all of our events and gatherings. So you're welcome to join us after Sunday service for a listening circle. Reach out to myself, to Reverend Jim, or any of the wonderful members here to find out more about Unity. So we're glad to have you here. Welcome. Now I'd like to move into some announcements before we move into our formal service. We've got quite a few things going on. The first thing I want to say is we have our annual meeting coming up on February 26th. This is a very, very important meeting. And we hope all of you will be there to have your voices heard and your votes counted, because we will be, there are 6 nominations for board openings. Some have been on the board and are being renominated, and others are new. So we're very excited about this slate of candidates. They'll be announced very soon in our newsletter. And we also want to hear from you. What kinds of questions, and to you on Zoom also, what kinds of questions do you have for your board and your leadership and the ministers here? We would like to hear them before the board annual meeting so that we can prepare if there's any information we need to gather. So send us an email to admin@unityofcharlotte.org, or let one of us know by just telling us. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, and we're looking forward to seeing you, and more information will be coming out about the annual meeting. Also, if there is anyone that feels strongly called to serve on the board, please let us know. The nominations have not closed. The other thing I wanted to speak to quickly is that we had a leadership circle meeting. Barbara Rolfe pulled all of the leaders together, at least some of them. We're not sure we know who all of you are. So I'm putting a call out to anybody who has served in a leadership role, or even just on a ministry team that maybe has not been active in a while. We want to hear from you, because we're going to begin to revitalize our service ministries, including the youth and family ministry and the outreach and community outreach ministry, and all of them. So if you have served in any capacity on there, please let me know, because we want to make sure you're included. So anyone watching us on Zoom, if you have participated or been in a leadership role, please let us know so we don't miss anybody. One thing we're immediately doing is beginning to reconvene our Sunday service team. I already have a few people who've said yes. I would love to know. We're going to start bringing you back up here, so you don't have to just listen to the Reverend Jim and Lisa show. So we really want you to be engaged and involved in ways that mean something to you. So we're going to have daily word readers. Our prayer chaplain program is going to be reconvening soon, and we'll have prayer chaplains involved in the Sunday service. We want someone to serve as platform leads. So if you're called to participate, please let me know. We are going to start meeting towards the end of, well, we're at the end of the month, the beginning of next month. Are we at the end of January already? How did that happen? So if you're called to serve on the Sunday service team, please let me know. I'd love to have you participate. Reverend Jim and I both would. Now, coming up this month, we are having our last January listening circle, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop listening. I promise. We have learned so much from those of you who have gathered with us in these last 3 Sundays. We have one more this Sunday, and to those of you on Zoom, please join us because we're going to have a Zoom session available. So even if you're not here in person, you can still participate. We want to hear from you as well. The book study. We have a book study coming up, so we will continue to meet on Sundays after the Sunday service, but we're starting a book study. If you don't know, February is Black History Month, and we're going to be honoring those who have had such a powerful impact in our American history. And the topics are going to be on inclusivity and how the Black members of Unity have had a formational effect on Unity as it is today. So I hope you'll join us. It's going to be some very powerful services. One Sunday, we're going to have some of our own members stand up and share with you their story of being in Unity. So something to look forward to. But our book study starts. It's called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. It's by Emmanuel Acho. And what it's really designed to do is he answers questions that those of us in white bodies are uncomfortable asking. So we're going to start really looking more closely at our own unconscious biases we may not even know are there. Because I can tell you, I've been doing this for a while now, and I continue to unfold layers of biases that I didn't even know were living within me, simply because I grew up in a country that taught me that. So this is a really important study. And this is an opportunity for us to have within a safe circle of cohorts a chance to talk about this and to ask questions that maybe you haven't been comfortable asking. So I really encourage you to come join us. We have it on Sunday after the service in person in the prayer room, and we have it on Thursday evenings via Zoom. So you have your choice of how you'd like to attend. We need to have you pre-register because we send information out before each class. So please pre-register by sending an email into admin@unityofcharlotte.org and let us know which session you're attending, and we need to know how many people will be in each session. So thank you. This is, I feel, a very important study and completely grounded in Unity principles of inclusivity and oneness. This is how we really begin to experience our oneness as a real thing. So welcome. Now we have coming up in February, Coffee with the Ministers. This is a Zoom on Friday mornings, and it's a casual opportunity to meet your ministers, ask them questions, check in. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? And then we will close with prayer. Pub Theology is going to be in person, starts this Thursday, 5 p.m. at Sir Edmund Hawley's Pub on Park Road Mall. Oh, good. I got a thumbs up on that location. Awesome. Oh, I got all kinds of thumbs. Good. We're expecting to see you all there now. This is Reverend Jim's, one of his favorite things to do. And it has always been one of the favorite things in every congregation we've been in. So I hope we'll see you there. This is a chance to just sit, have a drink, have a cup of coffee or tea, and engage in theological conversations. This is another place to ask questions maybe you never thought to ask or wanted to ask. So please join Reverend Jim. We have ongoing offerings that we want you to remember. All of these can be found in our newsletter. The links, the times, and whether they're in person or on Zoom are in our newsletter. A Course in Miracles has been going on, Dialogue of Service, Intention Meditation, wonderful time to go deep. The Belmont Study Group and the Men's Group. All of these are open for you to join. All right, I think I've made it through our plethora of announcements. Let's move into prayer. I invite you to, I'm going to begin opening with a prayer, and then I'll invite you to join us in speaking the prayer of oneness together. But let's begin by gently closing our eyes. Take a breath in and just allow yourself to become present in this moment as we join together in prayer. We hold this space we are gathered in as sacred. It's a space where we come to go a little deeper, to find that connection within that is the presence of God, the presence of Spirit, which lives and moves and expresses in and through us and as us. We know in this place the love that connects us as one, which heals, which comforts, which uplifts. And we see this love moving out beyond this community into our world, which so desperately needs to remember that this is our truth and the truth of all living beings. So please join me together as we speak our unity prayer of oneness. There is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, the good omnipotence. Thank you. And know that if you or your loved one is in need of any prayer, Unity is founded on prayer, and we have a very strong prayer ministry. If anyone is in need of prayer, actually, let's take this moment to actually speak their name out into the space. I'll give you a moment of silence, and if there's anyone, a person, yourself, or a situation even that you want to put out into this sacred space and lift into the light of Spirit, this is the moment to do that now. Know that they have been heard, and you have been heard as we claim that healing power has already touched each one. We also let you know, especially if you're there on Zoom and not here, that we have a silent unity prayer ministry that's available 24 hours a day. And that's always available. You can also reach out to Reverend Jim and I. We will always be available to hold you in prayer at any time. Now I'm going to move in to the daily word for Sunday to take us a little deeper as we prepare for our message. The word is prosperity. I broaden my perspective of prosperity. When I think of prosperity, I may think of financial wealth or my possessions. I may even feel tempted to compare my life to someone else's and feel as though I come up short in comparison. Today, my understanding of prosperity grows. Feeling safe and secure in who I am is prosperity. Knowing I am gloriously made in the image of God is priceless. Realizing the abundance of the natural world and partaking of it is a gift. And all of these are wonderful reminders I reside in the kingdom of heaven. The more I appreciate the riches of the material world, the more aware I am of my greatest prosperity, my oneness with God. And from Matthew 6:26, look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? There we go. All right, it's now my pleasure to introduce Reverend Jim, who's going to bring us a message this morning. Reverend Jim.
Thank you, Reverend Lisa. Thank you. Check out the video online on YouTube. She has a very nice presence, and you can actually watch her sing that. So check that out. I don't know if it's Rose. I think it's Rosier. I don't know. Yes, Denise Rosier. So I'm Reverend Jim, and it's good to see your faces out there. Now, knowing that our heat does not work today, could you tell? Right? Kristen got the word ahead of time because she wore her scarf, and she may be asked to share that with me later on. Yeah, great. I'm glad. So thank you for that. But know that we know that it's cold in here. The whole system is down, and our landlords know about it, and hopefully next week will be warm once again. So know that we know. So last week the last 3 weeks we've talked about transition. We've talked about transition, and we followed this book. If you want to purchase this book, it is a good, easy read with lots of good information. Finding Yourself in Transition with Robert Brumet is the name of that book. And we have spoken about the endings, and we've spoken about, last week, Reverend Lisa guided us through what Robert Brumet talks about as the void, that place where we regather, where the seeds are planted, where we allow them to germinate. This week is the last in this series, and we're talking about new beginnings. So endings, the void, new beginnings. This is what, and the author gives us an example from the Old Testament. This is moving into the promised land, is the way that he teaches this. And it's very nice. When I sat and thought about this topic this week, I reached back into one of my favorite quotes, the Transcendental Teachers. There we go. Henry David Thoreau is one of my favorite authors, someone that I learned quite a bit from. And he speaks to this idea of change and transition, and more specifically of new beginnings. So let me read that a little bit. I learned this, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his or her dreams and endeavors to live the life which he or she has imagined, they will meet with success unexpected in common hours. And we've probably all heard that before, but I want to also quote the following words. So less known are these words that follow that. So success unexpected in common hours. But then he continues, they will put some things behind, will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him or her, or the laws to be expanded and interpreted in favor in a more liberal sense. They will live with the license of a higher order of being. And I just love that. Right? Doesn't that just like rock your world? I mean, just that last sentence. And they, meaning us, as we move through transition, as we move through change within our lives, and they will live with the license of a higher order of being. Whew. I feel like I can do a mic drop right here, and just that's it, right? But we've talked about endings. We talked about endings. We talked about that void last week. And today it's about new beginnings. And knowing that those new beginnings that we see in our lives, they may feel like they're external things that we're working with, but instead, I'm going to suggest that those are internal, that those are things that we work on. And I'm getting some nods there. These things are these new beginnings within our lives. This is the shift that we think of in our lives. And this can be that sense of readiness if we're prepared, a sense of readiness, or maybe an inner awakening as well, as another phrase that I like. Reverend Lisa and I watched a documentary. I don't remember the title of it. It was about a Buddhist monk, maybe. I don't remember the title of that. If you want to know it, Happiness Man? No. Anyway, we watched a documentary about a Buddhist monk, and he used the phrase over and over again in terms of what I'm thinking of transition within our life, trust life. And I just love that. It just, kind of gave me chills sitting there watching that on Netflix. Trust life. Are we able to move through our life in our daily change, trusting that things are going to work out? And I love the idea of the universe itself conspiring in my favor. In other words, I'm not struggling against these things I'm accepting the universe conspiring in my, things are showing up that I didn't really notice or know were coming. And they're good. It works out. Those are positive. But we also know that transition, that new beginnings in our life is an expression of our desire as well. It's an expression of our desire. But we have to ask ourselves when we think about this, of how things, of new beginnings, how things show up in our lives, what it is that we are desiring. So that's the question we have to ask ourselves on a daily basis, or when this thing shows up on an hourly basis in our day. What is it that I desire? That's the question. And we've all heard and maybe attended prosperity classes when we talk about being specific with those things that we desire. In other words, if you're looking for a new house, a new place to live, let's just say, how big is it? How many rooms in that house? What kind of trees on that property? Those are the specifics that we might think about and envision within our lives. But at the same time, we don't want to be too specific, right? We want to be able to be open and flexible to what shows up in our life. This is the trust life piece of it. We want maybe even to tell ourselves as we visualize this thing, this or something better. We want to be open for that thing that we didn't even think was possible and allow it. In other words, don't be so focused on exactly boom, 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 these 5 things that something better can't even show up in your life. So yes, be specific, but be open and flexible at the same time. Be the best of both worlds, I guess is what I'm saying. Specific about how it makes you feel as well. That house that has a great living room that allows you to invite friends over and, I don't know, have dinner. Feel that friendship that's generated from that space. That's going to be more powerful than just that image, bringing in that feeling quality about it. But again, don't restrict yourself in that form of desire either. So when we think about this in terms of unity principles or unity phrases, maybe even, sometimes the idea of what we're thinking about our lives, this new transition, these new things showing up in our lives, sometimes we use the phrase, let go and let God. We've all heard that, right? But what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of transition, in terms of endings, the void, new beginnings? Does it mean that we have a dream and that we just totally drop it and let it go and let it show up in its own? No. My opinion, gospel according to Jim, this is me. Let go and let God isn't that we just give up and walk away from a dream or a vision or that specific thing that we're hoping shows up in our lives. It doesn't mean that we remove ourselves from that equation. I believe that let go and let God means that we surrender the specific details, is what I believe. So we feel what it is to want that thing and envision what that thing is. But the specific results, how we got there, those specific results, we leave open to the manifestation of the universe. We're open to that. But there are still steps that we need to take, right? So let go and let God doesn't mean that we just walk away from our dreams. It means that we take that one step at a time as well. Our author here in our book, Finding Yourself in Transition, Robert Brumet, tells us that a true beginning will occur when we've completed the inner work that is part of that previous stage. So that void is the inner work that we've been doing. We've sown the seed, we've prepared the ground, we've planted that seed, and we allow it to grow. That's the preparation. And when we're internally, I should say, when we're internally ready, we find a way to create that new beginning. Or perhaps we should say that's when that thing finds us as well. We could look at it that way. And there's a fascinating synchronicity between our inner and outer worlds. Those things, our creative process is an inner game for us, but we know it shows out, it manifests out into this physical world. It's kind of, well, it is that synchronicity of inner and outer worlds. This new beginning often occurs in unexpected ways sometimes. This quote from Robert Brumet, "The best approach is to be ready, but not anxious, to be alert, but not willful. Continue to pray, to trust, and to know that your life is in divine order." Let's drill down a little bit on this. This is his practical, this is the author's practical steps in this process of new beginnings. When we think of practical Christianity, these are the steps that he's talking about. He's saying, as we're going through this process, we pray. That's on us. That's what we do. We can pray and we can trust. That phrase that we discovered on Netflix, trust life. Trust life, that it's going to show up. To be ready but not anxious. That's the work that I do. Showing you a little glimpse into my own inner workings. I get anxious sometimes. Is this thing going to really work out? Do I have to just knuckle down, or do I have to just try harder, you know? And those anxious times, it's me waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning. The author's telling us to be ready but not anxious. To be alert but not willful. To be alert. In other words, be ready for this thing to show up. This is the synchronicity. Be ready for it, but not willful. In other words, it doesn't have to be a specific way that we thought. It might show up in miraculous ways. But to continue to pray, to trust, and to know, he says that your life is in divine order, to know that your life is in divine order. And that gives me comfort, that idea of divine order within my own life. And I hope it for you as well. So the author talks about new beginnings, and we talk about moving into the promised land. Out of the void and into the promised land is the image that he uses. So here's our Old Testament story to illustrate that moving into the promised land. So the endings, we're gonna use Moses, right? We're gonna use Moses as this Old Testament story. Here's Moses, the Israelites in Egypt, and they, if it helps you think of Yul Brynner in the movie, Let My People Go, right? That's the ending, right? Let my people go. That's the ending. They leave Egypt. They've crossed the Red Sea. Charleston, I can't even say it. Help me out. Heston, yes. Heston. Yeah, I can see him in his beard. But anyway, that's the ending. So that's the image of Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt. They wander in the desert for 40 years. There's the scene of the golden calf, and that's part of their anxiety. That's part of their anxiety in this 40 years, in this void. This is part of the planting of the seed and allowing it to germinate that Reverend Lisa spoke about last week. But it took that time, that void, it took that time for that generation within the story to be ready for the new beginnings. So in other words, in that time, new leadership was grooming itself. Joshua was coming up as the next leader of this group. Moses was not allowed into the new promised land. He actually had to pass away. He actually had to die before the Israelites crossed over that River Jordan into the promised land. That is the new beginning, that crossing over of the river and into the promised land. In other words, these are the old ideas that they carried with them. They went through and metaphysically crossing that water, that cleansing of the old idea, and into the new, which was that promised land. Israel is what we think of, or Palestine that we think of. Joshua stands at the threshold and becomes their new leader. He stands prepared. He had readied himself until the time was right. He was a military leader. He was a warrior at that time. He was a man of action as well. That was the new beginning. Metaphysically, we might even see ourselves within this story. So we don't know if this story was literal and true, but we take these stories as metaphysical, maybe metaphorical, but metaphysically, how about our inner warrior? So when this change, this thing shows up in our lives, are we ready to go through these steps? Have we opened ourselves up for the possibilities? Are we trusting life? Are we that spiritual warrior ready for that synchronistic thing to enter into our lives? Are we that person who's done the internal work? In other words, that preparation of the soil, of the planting of that seed that Reverend Lisa spoke of last week? Have we taken all the proper steps to make ourselves ready for that, whatever, that house, that next relationship? For us, maybe it's that next space that we're going to meet. That's a new beginning as well, right? Our new space. Are we ready for that spiritually And Fred's telling me, yeah, he's ready. He's ready. Maybe that's just the cold speaking right there. Yeah. Are we ready to boldly go into the promised land? Is the question that we ask ourselves in whatever it is we're working on within our private and personal lives. Last thing before we go. Has anyone heard or does anyone know of Amanda Gorman? She is a poet. Does anybody know? Yes, you know. Okay, a favorite of some people, and I'm hearing, yeah. The first time I saw her, she recited a poem at, I think it was Obama's second inauguration is when I saw her first, right? And if you haven't seen her, no? It was Biden's? Okay, so it wasn't that far back. Okay. So the first time I saw her, she was dressed in that nice yellow dress with a red hat, right? Very iconic, right? So if you haven't seen her, look her up. Her name is Amanda Gorman, and look and listen to this, or listen to her poetry. It's just amazing. She was the first National Youth Poet Laureate, and at 22 years old, she was the youngest inaugural poet in history. So she's got a lot going for her. So I'm going to read a piece of one of her poems. I'd like you to imagine that she's either speaking to you, or imagine that you can also imagine that this is Joshua on the banks of the River Jordan, looking across, getting himself and his people ready for the promised land. Or maybe you want to imagine this is as she's speaking to us as a congregation, as we make ourselves ready for that next transition, that next space for ourselves. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace.
Hi, Layla.
Oops.
How are you? My first time hosting.
And we're going to ask our Zoom folks to self-mute if they can,
Okay.
because
So
we
what do
can
I do
actually
like
hear you in the middle of this service. You're competing with Amanda. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean that we aren't striving for a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose. We reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say that this is true. That even as we grieve, we grow. That even as we hurt, we hope. That as we tried, that we forgave forever, tied together, victorious. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, unafraid. The new dawn balloons, and we feel it. For there was always light. If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. Whew, again, another chill up my spine. Amanda Gorman illustrates exactly what this transition means to me. Know that I love you. I bless you. I appreciate each and every one of you. Namaste. So let's go ahead and prepare ourselves for meditation. Let's move within. I invite you to get yourself nice and comfortable. Maybe take that breath and let it out. For me, it helps to plant my feet on the ground, to sit up nice and tall, allow my shoulders to drop down. I close my eyes, and you can do that as well if that feels comfortable. Moving within, and as we find our breath, we give ourselves something to focus on that moves, that is constant, that is internal, as we watch our breath come and go. We feel that flow of the in and the out of the breath. With each exhale, we relax a little bit more into this space. We move a little further inside. And we can tell ourselves that this calm that I feel, this natural state, is one of trust, one of expectation. For I trust and I expect all the good in my life. I focus on that spiritual quality of trust, that change and transition that happens in my life. I am prepared for. I have a consciousness that knows that worldly circumstances, those outside external things, do not dictate my reality, but instead my reality is spiritual. My reality is based in that trust, that divine order, that knowledge that I am one with the universe. This is my reality. I take another breath, and with that exhale, I move a little deeper within. I allow that space to open up, that slight pause between these inhales and these exhales. And each one of those spaces can fill with that ideal of trust. So let's take the next minute or two to breathe and to trust. And as we begin to come out of this silence, we might take that deep breath, become aware of the room around us once again, opening our eyes, just being here as well. Namaste. Just so you know me a little bit better, the first time I ever went to a Unity church, and I was not used to a Christian church sitting in meditation. We did exactly what we did here today. There was about a minute or two of silence. I opened my eyes with a tear in my eye, and I knew I am in the right place. This is what I needed. So I love the meditation during the service as well.
I got so many golden nuggets out of that talk, Reverend Jim. Thank you. But one of them that keeps going through my head is we are not broken. We are unfinished. Wow. So a reminder that our listening circle follows the service. And I am reminded that if you are on Zoom and joining us, the link can be found on our website. So please go to the website, click the link. Sunday link. That's the link you're looking for on the website. It's called Sunday Link, and you'll be taken into that Zoom link and you'll be able to join us for the listening circle. I hope you're coming. Now's our time for offertory and blessing. And we're reminded that as we give, so we receive, and that generosity is our natural state of being. So I invite you to join us in our offertory blessing together. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.